What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the kitchen. I'm your host, Cooking with Smoke, and today I'm gonna show you guys how to make a really good reverse seared steak, some creamy mashed potatoes, and a delicious green bean side. Let's head on down to the kitchen and get started. Be sure to like and subscribe because I can show you guys amazing videos just like this. Let's go. Now, to get started, we're gonna need a piece of meat. I've got a chuck piece. Now you can take whatever piece you want, but this is my preferred choice. We're gonna start off by looking for a part that has the most amount of fat. I chose the edge here because, as you can see, it's really easy to grab and it looks like it's got the biggest amount. We're gonna grab this because we want to get something called rendering. Rendering is when you cook to the most as you possibly can on this fat until you get all the oils out. This will give you key flavors and it will taste really good in the end. You can also use it as a snack. But the beef is done and we're gonna head over to seasonings. On to the seasonings. Pretty simple. I'm gonna first grab a little bit of pepper. I don't really have exact measurements here. You can do as you feel, as you go along. But I got pepper, I got a little bit of salt, and we're gonna start off with onion powder. On with the optionals, you can choose some dill powder and smoked paprika or cayenne pepper. I chose dill and cayenne, but you could choose whatever you like, whatever tastes good. This is optional because you can easily just go in with some salt. Now, on with our seasonings and our steak, we're gonna give a nice even coating onto this. I'm gonna get as much places as I possibly can to make sure that I get all those flavors in. Now, obviously you don't have to put as much as I am, but I am being very generous with my steak because I love my flavors, and I most importantly love my beef. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing this. You can watch along if you want to, or you can skip over to the next section, which will be cutting the potatoes. Your choice. On with the potatoes. Now, I'm gonna roll my potatoes in just for some fun. But in reality, we're just gonna cut our potatoes right in half. Reason why we're doing this is for three things. One, it's just more efficient. Two, now I'm doing this because it's a lot easier to decide on your potato cook by deciding on how rough it is. You can do this by sticking a fork directly into the potato, and again, you can easily tell. And three, it's much easier to peel once the potato has finished boiling. And, it's just much simpler. And I just like this idea. But I took mine into a bowl, and then we're going to transfer all this into a pot. You don't have to go from bowl to pot. I did it for video. But we're just going to take our potatoes and plop them right in. Once we finish this portion, I'll show you our next steps. Well, next step, very simple, just get some salt. Now, don't put too much salt because it'll raise the heat point, but just make sure to get enough for a little bit of flavor. Next, we're gonna head on to this part. Now, this is the sauce portion. So I'm first gonna get 3/4 of a stick of butter, and I'm gonna let this melt. But I'm not gonna let you watch the entire portion of me melting the butter. It's gonna take too long. So I'll skip over to the part when the butter is finally melted. Our butter's finally melted, and just like that, now you can see it's frothing a little. This is when you'll add 1 cup of heavy cream. Now, the ratio may seem a little off, or you may think, yeah, this is gonna be too buttery. But trust me, in the end, these potatoes will be much creamier, and you barely would even taste the butter by the end of this. But as you see me doing, constantly whisk, constantly watch the sauce. The sauce boils over very quickly, and you can even overboil this. And this will turn it from heavy cream into some kind of yogurt. We don't want that, as you can see. So Once it starts to get frothy and mix up, I added a little bit of salt and keep whisking. We need to keep going until that consistency looks good. We love some good sauce, but we don't like overboiled sauce. So I'm gonna let it keep whisking and keep going. Once it looks like this, you know your sauce is done. So let's head over to a steak. With the steak, finally, now the pan, we're gonna make sure it's a cast iron and it needs to be preheated. Now, obviously, my steak's in and it looks really, really good. So once this is in, we're gonna let it sit just for a little bit until that crust is finally done. So, just like that, the crust is looking good. And just with one flip, you can finally see how it looks. Yes. Now, from up above, it may not look like much, but from where I'm standing, it looks good. Now, obviously it's not done because we need to sear the other side. And, as I said, we're going to reverse sear, which means we're going to sear it and then throw it into the oven. But as you see, I'm rendering my fat for the extra amount. And it just tastes really, really good when rendering fat. And I can just make it into a pretty simple, snack. And I skipped over to the next portion when the other side is finished. But really, once both sides are seared, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our steak inside the cast iron 400 degrees until it is whatever type you like. Let's skip over to the beans. Now with the beans, butter, beans. What else is there to tell you? It's a stir fry, so really you want to keep going until you feel it's whatever type you like. Although if you undercook it, it may still feel a little raw, and by raw I mean stringy. But I skipped over to the part where it is finally nearly finished because we're going to add in seasonings. Alright, such as salt, pepper, and obviously I didn't put too much pepper, but that's okay. My steak and my potatoes are already pretty well seasoned. Just keep mixing. It's a stir fry, so what else are you gonna do than stir and fry? But now that this is nearly finished, what better way to do than add some herbs? I added a little bit of sage and a little bit of thyme. Now, yeah, you may think this is used for butter basting, but I did this because this can add a lot of flavor to not only steaks, but also beans. Now that it's finally finished, I added a little bit of chili pepper. I'm gonna add some minced garlic, and yeah, it's kind of sticking to my fork though. That's okay. But like I said, chilies and garlic. And we're just gonna continue mixing. And you could tell this is starting to really look like a stir fry. I'm sorry if there's smoke coming into the camera, but what can you do? It's cooking here, and like I said, I'm cooking with smoke. The potatoes are finally finished, and don't worry, I didn't forget. But like I said, peeling is super easy, like I'm about to do right now. I'm gonna show you guys how to peel it. Obviously, take off a little slit with a knife, but then right after that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna peel with our hands, because it's not that hard. Like I said, this is a very simple process, especially when the potato has cooled down. But we're gonna keep peeling until all of the skin is off. We don't want a single amount because it'll affect our creaminess. And if a little bit gets stuck, that's okay. Cut off a little bit of that skin. It's okay if you cut off a small amount of potato, but just make sure to scoop it back in when you're nearly finished. But as you can see, as I'm doing, continue peeling and continue going until it looks really good. It takes a little bit of a process to do, but in the end, what else are we doing this for? Are we really gonna leave the skin onto our potatoes? Yeah, didn't think so. But now it's finished, we're gonna transfer all this to a pot. Yep, I already pre-peeled all my potatoes, but really we're gonna take all of our potatoes and throw it into the pot. Now, this isn't going back into cooking, but first off, grab some seasonings. Yes, more seasoning. First, a heavy dose of salt. You want a lot of salt on this. Secondly, grab a medium dose of pepper. Again, it's whatever you think will taste best. I have no control on how much seasoning you put. But again, everything is to taste. But just a little bit, not too much of cayenne pepper. Alright, if you don't think it's enough, add more. But next we grab our potato masher, and we're gonna start mashing. Right, and we're gonna keep going until it is completely mashed. Yes, we want this to be very creamy. I'm gonna skip to the part where it's finally done mashing. You see I had a little more cayenne pepper, and I'm just continuing mixing. But you could see it's basically done. Right? So what better way to finish this off is, well, first to remove our potato masher, all potatoes. But next up, the biggest part, and yes, this will taste really good once it's finished, but we're going to add in all of our cream. Yes, all our cream. It looks really, really delicious and a little frothy, but that's how we want our potatoes to look, and our cream. Basically, as I'm doing, I'm pouring all of our cream into the potatoes, and I'm just going to continue mixing until I don't see a single amount of excess cream. The reason why we're doing this is because mashing isn't doing enough. So we need to add cream to make it even more creamier and much more better. As you can see, I'm using a frosting spatula because that's how it's going to feel. Almost like frosting. Very simple. Take out the bowl. And after that, I'm going to head over to the next part. You know what the next part's going to be. Beef. I threw this in the oven at 400 degrees for around 20 minutes, or until I had the cook that I wanted. But once this is finished, we're going to take our steak right out of the pan. Now, you may want it to rest for 5 to 10 minutes. That's what I did. But really, it doesn't really matter. If you want your beef to be like that, go for it. But really, I'm going to grab my knife, and I'm going to start cutting somewhat bite-sized strips. Now, cutting into strips, it just looks a little nicer, and I don't want to stick an entire piece of chuck meat straight onto a plate. There'll be no room for anything else. But I'm just going to continue getting all of this stuff finished, and once we're done, we'll get to our next part. As you can see, our beef is finally cut. It looks pretty good. So now it's time for plating, the final part. First, I grab an ice cream scooper, and we're just gonna take our potato and lay them. I grabbed 2 scoops of potato and laid them on top of each other. Looks nice, right? But we're gonna go to the next part. Grab my knife here, and I'm gonna get to the best part, the steak. This steak looks phenomenal, and it will probably taste even better. Now, it wasn't too even of a cook, but that's alright. Finally, I'm gonna grab some green beans. And yes, I did burn myself while trying to get the beans on the plate. But it's not finished because we officially need to get our napkin and wipe around it. It'll just make it look that much better. But there you have it, a beautiful plate of chuck steak with some mashed potatoes and a beautiful side of green beans. I really hope you enjoyed this. And if you want to see me back in the kitchen making amazing foods like this, or anything else you guys would like, subscribe, hit the like button, and comment on what else you want me to cook. That's all for Cooking with Smoke, and I'll catch y'all in the kitchen another day.